Hello, everyone. My name is Federico Lujevics. I represent the Argentine Association of Compliance and Ethics. It's a real pleasure to be here. I'd like to welcome you all to this webinar where we are going to talk about the global state of compliance. I saw we have people from South Africa, Nigeria, Ireland, Spain, the UK, Argentina, DC, Brazil, and all over the world. So thank you all for joining us today. And thank you, IFCA, for organizing this webinar. And special thanks for all our panelists. Before introducing our panelists for today, let me tell you that we are warming up for what is going to be our IFCA International Congress 2023. I think this will be the best edition of IFCA's International Congress, not only because of the speakers we are gathering for the event, but also because of the topics we are going to discuss from October 17 to October 19 and totally online. We'll have 3 full days to discuss global challenges and anticipate emerging approaches to regulation, business, technology, compliance management systems, and compliance strategies. Now, why do you all have to register to IFCA International Congress 2023? What can you expect from the most important event in compliance at a global level? You can expect 3 days of learning and engagement, 12 global member associations participating across 5 continents, more than 30 leading compliance speakers from all over the world, panel sessions and interviews with global compliance leaders, and 30 days to access session recordings so you can watch the content again, and again. Among other topics, during our Congress, we'll discuss about data privacy, conduct risks and ethics, AML, AI, and ChatGPT, ESG, reputational risk, and innovation and technology. The good news for you all people is that just for attending this webinar, you get a special discount on the ticket to our IFCA International Congress. So you will receive your code after the minute this webinar ends. Just go to ifca.co and join us for our 2023 International Congress. So thanks once again for joining us. Let's start with our speakers for today. I'm honored to host this meeting with friends and colleagues from all over the world. Today, we'll have the opportunity to talk with some of the most recognized compliance professionals in the world about the main topics that will be the core of our IFCA 2023 International Congress. Please, guys, team, I will ask you to turn on your cameras. I will start introducing Naomi Burley. Naomi is CEO at GRC Institute in Australia. Pattison Volego. Pattison is Managing Director of Pattison Consulting and President of Nigeria Compliance Institute. Riani Pochieter. Riani is CEO at Southern Africa Compliance Institute. And Alex C. Monchian, founder and CEO of Privacy Advocates, specialist in data privacy in Russia. So let's start with our questions related on the topics we're going to cover in our IFCA International Congress 2023. Remember, this is just a warming up. This is just the beginning. Please note that during the webinar, you will be able to send your questions to our speakers in our Zoom chat. And if we have the time, we'll share it with them. Now, we will start with our first question to Alexei. Hi, Alexei, how are you today? I hope everything is okay around there.
Yes, Federico, thanks a lot. And I would like to say warm welcome to all participants of today's webinar. And many thanks to the organizers for the privilege to be first to speak. And of course, big thanks for the National Section of Compliance in Russia, because I'm representing them today in this webinar. So thanks a lot.
Thank you, Alexei. Let me start with my first question for you. Alex, in today's interconnected world where data privacy and cyber risks know no borders, what proactive measures should organizations take to anticipate and mitigate cyber threats? Could you please provide some examples of the effective strategies to anticipate and mitigate cyber risks?
Yes, so I think the all organizations, they just have to follow the best practice, which are already in there. So I mean, many organizations, many national institutions, and governmental bodies and authorities, they have developed multiple approach how you can be cybersecurity compliant, and of course compliant from the privacy perspective. And I think the overall view is that you have to be compliant in the three ways: from the technical perspective, from the organizational perspective, and from the legal perspective. I think it's just classics. And for sure, first of all, when we're talking about the legal compliance, so you have to have all procedures, I mean, local procedures in place. So you have to have all the necessary agreements, I mean, like NDAs, SLAs in place. So this is quite a common thing. But of course, when we're talking about the legal side of the of this story, we also have to watch regarding the possible data breach situations, because according to my professional experience, many companies, when they do face such occasions like data breach, unfortunately, they don't have a clear data breach management policy and plan in place. So they are just try to act like they have a fire in their office and try to do something effective, something efficient. But of course, the best way how you can handle the data breach is just to be prepared in advance. So this is, I think, the first, well, not insight, but quite important thing to follow. And of course, when we're talking about the financial institutions, I think it's quite important for them is also especially to look at the supply chain attacks, because many financial institutions, they do not have their own dependent IT infrastructure, so they are depending on the outsourcers, on the external data centers and service providers. And according to my experience, when we're talking about the data breach, at least in half cases of data breach, it's about attack regarding the supply chain, not the organizations themselves. The second thing, of course, when we're talking about the proactive cybersecurity measures, so I think it's important to have in place all proactive cybersecurity and privacy tactics. So three of them, I think they are the most important ones. So threat hunting, the penetration testing, and of course, proactive network and endpoint monitoring. So those are technical means. But because those measures are proactive, so the best way how you can handle any privacy or cybersecurity risk is just to anticipate and mitigate it in advance. So I think this is the best approach how we can do this. And the last but not the least, of course, I think one of the most important is organizational measures and measures regarding establishing a privacy and security focused culture in the organization, because in the center of all things are people. So you have to make you have to engage your personnel, your staff. You have to make all necessary cybersecurity and privacy trainings, and engage people in all this story and all this stuff. Because if people are motivated, if they are aware about all cybersecurity threats, so I think this is at least half of the story is over for you. I mean, regarding the cybersecurity threats and all other types of threats regarding privacy and any information security and compliance. Because according to current statistics, from 70 to 80 cybersecurity incidents, they originate from the people, from the, internal story, from the local staff. So I think the best way how you can handle this is just invest in your relationship with the local personnel and developing the local privacy and security focused culture. So that's the story from my side. Thanks a lot.
Thank you, Alexei. It looks like everything is about creating a compliance culture in data privacy, cyber risk, and every single issues, every single different issues we are talking about. So thank you very much. Now, the following question is for Pattison. How are you today, Pattison? Everything okay?
Thank you very much, Federica.
Thank you.
Everything is okay.
Thank you for joining us. Let's go with our first question for you, Pattison, and it's still related to compliance risks. One of the topics we will address during our IFCA 2023 Congress, and it's the following. Pattison, AML efforts have been a global concern with varying degrees of effectiveness in different regions. What are the key lessons that compliance professionals can learn from international AML scandals, and how can they proactively address the next vulnerabilities to enhance their AML programs?
Thank you once again for having me, and I'm truly glad to be part of this very eminent team of speakers. And on behalf of my institute, the Compliance Institute Nigeria, I send you greetings. We all saw the huge scandals that has been all over the place. Banks collapsing as a result of poor AML controls, and the efforts being made to close these gaps and vulnerabilities cuts across regions. And there are very valuable lessons that we're going to learn as compliance professionals from all the scandals that have taken place over the past few years. And I'll personally say that most of this have been as a result of lively too much focus on regulatory compliance and less focus on integrity compliance, and this has brought in a lot of corruption and bad behavior among the players in the marketplace. So we need to regulators need to place a lot more emphasis on conduct and behavior, and deal more with the integrity compliance instead of regulatory compliance. And also, you will find out that the practices around due diligence have really relaxed. The need to do proper customer identification is a major problem, particularly here in this part of the world, in Africa, where we have a lot of infrastructure problems to really capture people's identity. And so this has created a lot of vulnerabilities that have led to a lot of scandals in failures in AML controls in companies. And so we need to ensure that we put adequate customer due diligence processes in place to ensure that we are able to significantly reduce the amount of vulnerabilities from failures of being able to identify people. Issue of beneficial ownership, I'm sure you know, is very high up there. We need to be able to get to the actual beneficial owners of structures that have been created to assist money laundering. We also have seen, as a result of the failures we have seen, we've seen relaxed environments for technology. You see, the world is moving so fast. There's been a lot of technological innovation, but compliance is not catching up because people are not, they are still relying on old traditional means of transaction monitoring. The methods of financial intermediation is becoming so sophisticated. So we need to leverage on technology such as AI and machine learning to be able to catch up with this space. And so bring real-time monitoring of our activities to increase the ability of our companies and our professionals to identify unusual items and report suspicious transactions to the authorities. This has been lacking because of the poor adaptation of technology, again, particularly in poorer countries like in Africa. And I know that efforts have been made by some institutions to even assist people to even acquire technology. I know recently in South Africa, we had Afrexim talk about they are wanting to introduce a facility for less privileged territories like in Africa, where companies can actually get loans to buy technology equipment to boost compliance. Another critical part of the elements that have created these gaps and vulnerabilities is the fast pace with which there's financial intermediation across borders. So as we increase in interaction trading across borders, we find that crime moves from one territory to the other. And so it makes it easy for launderers to actually move their proceeds easily across borders and disguise them. So it's very important that we pay attention to the need to collaborate and cooperate among the players law enforcement agencies across jurisdictions should need to cooperate, have mutual legal assistance programs to go after criminals, and then also increase the level of collaboration and sharing of information between financial institutions. That's why in Nigeria, for example, we have the Association of Chief Compliance Officers of Banks in Nigeria, and as we have in a lot of other countries in West Africa, where compliance officers come to share information, and take the bad guys out of the system. We also need to emphasize the need for training, because the way things have gone, we just had Alexis talk about AI. AI is taking over the environment, and so compliance officers have to upskill, and learn more. And that is why you have institutes, and that's why IFCA is there to provide the support for training and knowledge base. And this is also going to help us deal with the lack of knowledge that has created the vulnerability that I've seen a lot of these crashes that we've seen in and scandals we've seen in the industry. Another thing we need to also not forget about, the lesson that we have learned, is the failure in specific risk assessments in various specific areas like cryptocurrency. Not many people understand virtual assets, and so there is need for us to increase our understanding of specific risks that we face as a result of some of these new technologies. And so we encourage compliance professionals to see how they can introduce a lot more of high-level risk assessments of products, new products, and new customer segments that are evolving. We need to pay more attention to that so that we can identify the AML risks involved in these new areas. Again, one very critical thing we need to also talk about is whistleblowing culture. See something, say something. This is not usually very well established in certain regions and certain jurisdictions, because typically people don't want to talk about others. I am aware that some time ago, when we had issues in when I was the chief compliance officer of my bank, in Rwanda, for example, because of genocide, they don't like to blow with the whistle because they don't want to talk about each other. But you see, whistleblowing culture actually helps to promote reporting suspicion, and helps in the ability to get information to the appropriate authorities that is required for purposes of prosecuting money launderers. And so we need to promote the culture of whistleblowing so that it can help to provide the appropriate basis information when they see suspicion. And then at least we should also make sure that whistleblowing processes are also protected and whistleblowers are protected. I would like to also talk about the role that sometimes we overlook that has caused, if you remember the Silver Valley crash, it was a result of a gap in board oversight. The board needs to be constantly provided with information that is out there on AML controls. And where we have lacks in board oversight, it could create problems within the system. And so we need to get the board members more involved in AML CFT oversight within our institutions. This is very critical because the board sets the tone, and they have to set the right tone. And we need to create a culture of compliance generally, in the environment. People used to think that a compliance environment that is compliant is when you have a very super chief compliance officer and his team. That is not true. When we say compliance environment, we're actually talking about every member of the team, putting up their best to understand the obligations to, comply with regulation, to understand the regulation to the letter, and do things to make sure that they comply. That is where you create a proper compliance culture. And then, of course, anything that is not done and anything that is not checked is not properly done. And we need to get our audit, our testings properly to check to make sure that the entire controls are working. I think I'd like to conclude by saying that all the failures and gaps we've seen over the years did not come by surprise, because there's been a lot of vulnerability lapse, which I believe if we promote proper due diligence, if we take care of the issue of corruption in the system, we will be able to deal with.
Thank you,
So I'd like to
Patterson.
stop here.
Thank you, Patterson. Thank you for your insights. Let's travel now to Australia, and we'll continue with our next topic, which is strategies and governance in the compliance landscape. We'll start with you, Naomi, from Australia. But first, please remember you can send your question for our speakers via Zoom chat, and that this is a warm-up for our IFCA Congress 2023, and that for attending our webinar today, you will receive a benefit of a discount to register for our event. Hey, Naomi, how are you? Thank you for joining us. I hope you're doing well.
Thanks, Federico. Thank you, everyone, for coming along to the webinar today. Great response from everybody. Very excited to see everyone here.
Let me start with the first question for you related to ESG, and it's the following. Naomi, how is ESG being understood by organizations in the Australian market, and where is the role for compliance now and into the future?
I'm quite fascinated by the whole ESG phenomena that's spread around globally. And I think that in Australia in particular, it's gone across all industries. So in some industries, there's quite a strong understanding of some of the elements, especially in the environmental area, say in mining or in primary production. But in financial services, it's been embraced in a slightly different way, where I think a lot of financial institutions have seen an opportunity to launch products that have a sustainability profile or claims around that to give back to the environment. So it's been an interesting start in a journey that I think is going to take quite a bit of maturity, because it's quite a complex suite of activities that go on in the ESG. So it is around sustainability, it is around giving back to nature, it is around climate change. There are some specific measurable reporting that's going to be required by organisations that sits in your E bucket. And then in your S bucket, it's very, very complex things around modern slavery, inclusion, diversity, Indigenous rights. So there's a lot in there. And I think at the moment, we're at the beginning of a very immature journey that's going to sort of take 5 to 8 years, I think, to get the full spectrum. But it's one that's really, really essential. It's raising the requirements for organisations to step out of simply their financial and fiduciary duties to make a profit for their shareholders, and think about how they are taking care of the world and the people in it, and to put measures and metrics around that and say where they're preventing harms and where they're actually looking after people. So the role of compliance in that at the moment, where it is, I think I don't think people have recognised the really unique skill set that compliance professional has around building frameworks, building out the culture, and building out metrics around a lot of things that are quite unquantifiable. And that assurance and governance expertise that compliance professionals have in terms of monitoring things and having governance around the life cycle of things. So at the moment, we're seeing a lot of ESG positions being created in organisations, and they might get in subject matter experts who are great on the environmental piece, or they have expertise in particular accounting activities they need to do, or they have a background in Indigenous affairs or modern slavery or whatever it might be. And they might be still thinking in a very siloed way about it. I think over time, organisations will recognise that rolling out against obligations you've committed to, which is what you're doing in an ESG program, fits very, very nicely in your compliance skill set. Assessing the risks of not achieving those promises sits very, very nicely in the skill set for compliance people and requires a framework. So I think over time we will see compliance people being pulled into those discussions. I think we'll see it being reported in a risk matrix the same way other obligations risks are. And I think we will see a lot more strengthening of assurance and governance in that piece. So I think longer term, compliance professionals really need to get their head around that, and I think they should be inserting themselves in conversations right now in those areas if they aren't already. But at the moment, it's seen as a little bit of a specialised field, and I think people will understand that those are SMEs, but they don't build a framework for you. So that's my prediction.
Thank you very much, Naomi, for your predictions. I see we have a few hands up from people around the world. If you don't mind, my dear panelists, I will give the word for them in case they'd like to ask live questions. I have Janine Supra there, Anna Canet, CEO Van Brady, Diane Sherman. Any of you wants to join us in the floor and ask our panelists any questions live? Okay. So we'll follow with our program as expected, and we'll continue before introducing Riani. I have one more question for you, Pattison. My next question for you is still related to strategies and governance and has to do with an issue we as compliance officers face every day. Compliance is often viewed as a cost center, but how can compliance professionals demonstrate that we can contribute to an organization's bottom line and overall success? Are there any specific strategies or practices that have been successful in this regard, Pattison? What can you tell us about this?
Yeah, thank you very much once again, Federica. And this is actually a very topical issue. In my career, I always, when people who don't understand always ask you, compliance, what do you even do? I mean, what do you contribute to us? I mean, and so that is open frontal attacks. Sometimes subtly, they don't openly come out to attack you that way, but they don't pay much attention to you in your compliance function. And then the problem is because, trust me, as compliance professionals, we have not done enough to be able to show to our management and to our senior management and the board what compliance actually contributes to the business. And so it's a very topical issue. Compliance actually is good business. That is my summary of it. Compliance is good business. If you start from the issues around how doing proper good compliance is supposed to help you manage your reputational risk, it gives you, it puts you in a position to be able to manage your efforts to comply with regulation and keeps you out of trouble. That is very basic, and then also, compliance is also an epitome of efficiency because it helps you to reduce operational losses and it provides operational efficiency. How does this happen? You see, compliance is very proactive, and so it's actually helps you to to deal with the cost of non-compliance. So because you're proactive, you get things done right first time, and so when you get things done right first time, you take out the cost of non-compliance. We could actually, directly relate to actual physical costs, because each time you get things done wrong, it takes you a lot more effort to correct them. So what compliance does, it helps you to put your processes and streamline your operations to reduce the resources you need to get you to achieve your objective. And so, the compliance and customer trust are two interjoined variables. Some customers believe in institutions and trust that they will be taken care of, their data will be properly protected, and that they are dealing with people who are reasonable because they can see that you have a strong compliance culture. And so you win the hearts of your customer when you can show them that you have a good compliance posture in place, and it therefore provides you with competitive edge. It could actually be a very strong competitive edge and gives you heads and shoulders above your competition if you can show your partners and your customers and your investors that you actually have a strong compliance culture. And in this innovative world, like when I say compliance is good business, I'm sure what professionals, business marketing people actually talk about value chain management. The core value of value chain management that helps you to build your business. It helps you to take advantage of expanding your business. And so how do you do that? When you do your due diligence very well, the more of your customer you know, the more of his business you get. And so compliance practices actually drive customer due diligence, knowing your customer and knowing your customer's business, which is invariably helping you to improve your value chain and bank entire value chain of your customers, thereby locking in your balance sheet with you. So if you look at compliance from that perspective, it actually helps to increase business and market ownership. And we've also talked about helping you to reduce cost, and of course, cross-functional collaboration. Compliance working with HR, working with legal, and other parts of the business helps to create harmony in the system and creates a proper understanding of the objective of the organization. Alexis was talking about data and data management and data protection. You see, data analytics has become a very major topic today. So one way you can understand your customer better is to manage his transactions and his behaviors. From his transactions, you can actually predict the behavior of your customer. And one thing that our compliance functions do very well from their transaction monitoring and data analytics is to provide the market-facing people with information about the behavior of their customers. And the market-facing guys, particularly those who give out loans, they can compliance negative news activities can help them to know a lot more about their customers that they know, to enable them make sure that they are providing the customers with exactly what they want, and then to also protect the organization from bad customers. So we need to also understand that employee productivity and retention also has a role to play in a good compliance culture. Many people feel more comfortable working with certain organizations because of the good compliance and ethical practices in those organizations. And this is a big plus for you to get the best quality people out there. I know of organizations whom some people would definitely not want to work with because of some reputational compliance related issues that have been around them. So it pays. So take time to report their performance of compliance to the organizations. From time to time, compute your return on investment on compliance by checking out, let management see how much you have saved from all the losses that will have accrued if you had not had a good compliance controls in place. Put them together as KPIs and prepare matrices and make a report to the board from time to time to keep the board abreast for them to see how compliance is contributing to the business. So this is how I think we can help people to understand the value of compliance, to our businesses, and it is in the hands of the compliance professionals to do that.
Thank you, Pattison. Thank you very much. Now let's run to our next topic, which is my favorite, and we'll introduce Riani. Please, everyone, feel free to post your questions in the chat box or under the QA tab. Now, Riani, how are you? Thank you very much for joining us. It's my pleasure to have you here. Everything okay over there?
Thank you, Federico. It's cold here in Cape Town, but we're doing well. Thank you.
Well, same as in Argentina, but we are also doing well here, talking to you, friends and colleagues. Well, Riani, thanks once again for this next topic. I've got one question for you, and it's the following. Riani, in a world where AI is increasingly automating tasks and processes, what specific human skills do you believe will become even more critical and sought after? And how can individuals and organizations cultivate these skills to thrive in this AI-driven era of compliance and regulation?
Thank you, Federico. One of my favorite topics as well. The World Economic Forum's white paper on the jobs of tomorrow and the impact of large language models on jobs, such as ChatGPT, Bing, Bard, and there are many others. I see Claude has now been surpassing ChatGPT as a favorite. But when you look at this white paper that came out, I quite like the way that they look at it. It's not an all or nothing approach that we should have here. The way that they've looked at it, they said which of the jobs have a high potential for AI automation, which ones have a high potential for AI augmentation, and then which jobs have a very low potential or low risk to AI automation or augmentation. So if you look at the automation, It's typically those jobs that have very routine and repetitive tasks in them. In practical terms, we think of things like credit authorizers, checkers, clerks, and the like. Those are probably going to be replaced by AI, and quite rapidly, and probably be happening as we speak. Then the jobs with high potential for AI augmentation, funny enough, I was quite surprised by this, is critical thinking and complex problem solving. So typically in the mathematical and scientific analysis space, one tends to think when you read through all of these things that those kind of skills are going to be very human driven. Very, very interesting to see that AI is playing a large role there, and will play quite a large role there. And then the jobs with low potential for AI automation or augmentation are those where there's a high personal interaction component, such as healthcare professionals, teachers, social workers, and the like. And then, of course, I don't think this is going to be news to anybody, but the top sector that is most exposed to artificial intelligence, and not just the one, but a couple of top sectors are financial services, IT, digital communications, media, and then entertainment, sports industry. So the other thing that stood out for me from this report was that if you look at the compliance officers, what they did was they have a graph in this report, and that shows the degrees to which a job can be in one of these categories. And for compliance officers, about 50% of our tasks can be automated or augmented by AI. Now that's quite interesting, So I think if you're in that space and you're in a compliance role currently, where you are doing a lot of repetitive work and routine work and so on, it's really quite a red flag, I would say, for you as an individual to start to think about how can I move into a role in compliance. I'm not saying outside of compliance, but what should I start to think about to make myself more sought after? The other 50%, if you're looking at the compliance officers with its low exposure, so very low risk of being replaced, and the kind of activities that I think would fit into those categories would be things like being an advisor or being a problem solver. These are typically also the kind of things that you will see when people talk about future skills. Problem solving is often one of the skills that come up. Now, this is just the large language model. We're not even talking complete artificial intelligence yet. That's just a report just on LLMs. But I think there are so many things coming at compliance officers today. That's AI, as I've said, and that is the topic of discussion. But if you just look at the other influences, what about legislation? So legislation by necessity is starting to move more and more into a principles-based kind of approach with outcomes defined rather than inputs defined. So less rules, much more principles. And what does that do? It leaves it to the organization to understand what the risks are that they're exposed to, and then to design the control environment. And I'm going to call it specifically not controls. These are not individual controls. I think they are control environments, because what we will see is that there will be a mixture of principles and rules still. We can't get away from large organizations. You can't just let everybody loose and follow their own principles. You're going to still have a measure of internal rules, surely. I would expect that. Naomi has spoken about ESG. Do I need to say anything about that? These things are not just affecting us in our roles as compliance officers, but at a personal, individual level, our families, our communities are being affected so much. We've just had some very bad storm surges here in Cape Town with very, very large damages to property and even some people killed. Cyber issues, as Alexei has mentioned, and then, we're so quick to forget, aren't we? But what about the macro factors? COVID-19 is just, it's almost like a distant memory now, but it's like 2 years ago. And those, it's not the last thing that will happen to us, So these are all the kind of influences that are playing into our space today. We're talking about business, the evolution of businesses, products and services that are going and changing with the times. So I think to cut to the chase, what are the skills that we have to look at from a compliance perspective, and certainly from a human being perspective? I'm very fascinated by this theory of multiple intelligences. I know this is not going to be news to you. Probably everybody knows that we've moved away from just purely IQ, and there's also a large component of emotional intelligence now, EQ. But there are other intelligences. There's some theories around this. You have spatial intelligence, bodily kinesthetic intelligence, musical, linguistic. How good are you with words? Is that a strength? Language, logical, mathematical skills, interpersonal skills, intelligences, intrapersonal. So how well do I know myself? And then naturalistic intelligence. So that's how I interact with the environment and how good those skills are. And why I mentioned this as a model to think about, what are those skills that we will need in the future? Very, very interesting if you start to compare these multiple intelligences to say which of these are we still beating artificial intelligence at? Or where is AI starting to beat us? And when you do that comparison, it really becomes quite an eye-opening exercise. Many of these, even the ones that you would expect, one would expect logical, mathematical skills that a technology or artificial intelligence are going to beat us at that. But how about linguistic? Whoever would have thought? That's a human skill for sure. Oh no. So in many of these intelligences, AI is moving in. So what are those skills that we need to look at then?
Thank you.
Digital, yes.
Thank
Sorry,
you. Your time is over, but please.
Okay, sure.
I'll give you a couple of more seconds to end your idea, please. Because they are running me, we don't have all the time. I would like to talk to you about these topics, but they're running me. Really.
No, sure. That's fine, Federica. Okay, no, so I'll stop. So I'll just complete.
Please take a couple of more seconds to end your idea.
Yeah, so I think just to conclude then on the skills, I would say, and I'm just going to run through them quickly. Digital literacy is a no-brainer. You have to have a working knowledge of the world of artificial intelligence, cloud computing, edge computing, blockchain. Understand these things. You're not going to become a coder, but you need to understand them. Ethics, it's an absolutely emerging skill that we need to have a working knowledge of. Critical thinking, emotional intelligence, creativity, collaboration. That's going to be key, not just amongst people, but us with machines, us with other disciplines as compliance. Now, that's going to be an absolutely key skill. Flexibility. And then I would just, away from skills, the characteristics. As a person, what is your personality? What are those traits that you might have to look at? Humbleness, inquisitiveness or curiosity. Be comfortable with uncertainty. You don't have to know everything, but you need to be humble enough to say, I don't know. Can we talk? Right? And then just to be bold and brave. Take this and run with it. Nobody knows better than you. Just do it. Thank you, Federico.
Thank you, Riani. Thank you very much for your insights. We'll move forward with Naomi with another question for you. Naomi, in a country with very limited direct regulatory consideration of AI, do you think compliance has a role to play in how organizations use AI for business purposes? And if so, how and why?
Look, I think that there's a school of thought that thinks about AI as purely a tech risk, and that we should leave that to the subject matter experts and worry about that. But my stance on it is that it's being utilized as a tool like you would utilize any other business tool or even a staff member to conduct analysis or write text for you. So there are a number of ways that AI is being deployed within organizations already. And so I think it behooves any organization to get a real grasp on what that means if there is a risk exposure and what the flavor of AI being deployed in your organization does for your cultural aspect and does for your efforts to actually comply. So you wouldn't allow, a new staff member who hadn't been who've gone through all the normal onboarding processes to run around making decisions on your behalf, because that might take you into a non-compliant area. And the same is for AI. I think this is the oversight part of deploying any kind of tool. So I think organizations have got a handle on that. And I think that they understand that you need to bring your compliance and risk area into those conversations. And it's not just a tech expertise area. So I think compliance is going to be stepping in that space where they ask the interrogation questions and then ask how the decisions are aligning with the guardrails that the organisation has agreed to put up around the decision making. Is it in risk appetite? Is it how our culture and values, who we say we are? Is this what we've committed to as an organisation? I think the other side of this is that we need to again step away from the idea of it being tech and think about does it actually have enough data for it to not be biased? Is it actually making reasonable conclusions based on the data you've got? Would you come to the same conclusion and sort of test those outcomes? And you have that already in existing business tools. I think you just take those skills and transfer them over to AI, but you have to have that broad thinking. You also have to have the compliance thinking where you go out into the organisation, just like we've had to do in the cyber risk and data privacy space, and interrogate where you've got data. You have to ask who in the organisation is using AI for things and they're not telling you about it. So if your marketing team suddenly deployed ChatGPT to write all of their material for them, where are they pulling all these claims from? Is there any oversight for this? You need to understand who's actually using the tool. And that, I think that's one of been the early discoveries of it. There are a lot of rogue people in organizations deploying AI to get their jobs done for them. And from a governance perspective, people in the organization have no clue that this is going on. And that does expose you to a risk because they could be signing off on things they haven't. You're trusting the human level of judgment, or you're trusting that that person's standard of work is remaining the same, whereas they might be, having a bad time of it. They decide to get AI to do their job for 3 months, and all of a sudden you've got some very interesting marketing material going out and not being signed off in the ways it should be. So it all just comes into your normal compliance and risk space, I think. And you can get in a subject matter expert if you want, but interrogate it like you would anything else.
Thank you, Naomi. I see we are receiving lots of comments on the topics you are talking about, and they are great for you all. So let me congratulate you all. And the last comment we received is from Amit Ganesh, and saying this is an incredible time to be a compliance officer. And I think that's a good conclusion of what we've been talking up to now. Mm-hmm. Let's move forward because we're running out of time. And my next question is for you, Alexi. Can you please tell us about your insights on the pros and cons of using privacy compliance automation tools, in particular in relation to in-house development versus external services and AI?
Yeah, thanks a lot for your question, Federica. So regarding the automation tools and data privacy compliance, so I think it's quite obvious that this is not even a fast-growing trend, but it's like big, great trend for now. Many companies, many privacy organizations in the companies, they, of course, they really would like to enjoy using privacy automation tools and means. And because myself, I'm a data protection officer at 4 companies, and I see that they are really in favor of using such tools. But of course, everything in our world have its top and bottom sides. So when we are talking about automation tools, it's always a big dilemma. Should you depend on your own internal in-house developed tools, or you can buy? External services, external bundles, software, whatsoever. And I think the majority of the companies, they prefer to buy external services, so just software as a service or automation tool as a service, and they're feeling quite fine because they are saying that it's stable, it's dependable, it's always developing, so you don't have to watch. Current developments, because the service providers is doing this by itself, so it's just normal just to use the services and pay like a moderate amount of money for those services. But when we're talking about the bottom side of this, so you are depending on the service. And if something goes wrong, there is any force majeure, so you will just lose your connection, lose your access to the information. And because I'm representing the organization, compliance organization from Russia, so last year we have faced some occasions where global service providers, they couldn't provide those services in Russia anymore. And many companies, they just lose their services. And for them, it was, I mean, from the compliance perspective, from the privacy perspective, it was not so good, and they were feeling uncomfortable. And of course, in some perspective, they did this did quite negative effect on the privacy compliance. So now I think it's not regarding only Russia, but some other countries, many big organizations, they're thinking of developing their own automation tools. And this also has quite advantages, because you can make a tool which is exactly suits your privacy compliance organization. So you will have all necessary functionality there in place, and it will be just what exactly you need. So when you are choosing something external, so you have to find like a compromise. But when you're developing your own tool, and when you're spending your own money, even when you're hiring some external developers, you will have the tool which is exactly combines your vision, your understanding, how the privacy compliance program, how the privacy compliance functionality should look at. And I mean, you'll have all necessary tools like consent management, data privacy management, data protection impact assessment management. All the functionality will be in the place. But regarding the using AI technologies in those tools, well, to be perfectly frank, this gives me some chills, because what I have faced, well, two potential challenges which organization could face. First of all, false sense of stability and predictability of AI algorithms. I mean, when you are thinking that the program is smarter than you, so this could create some big problems for your organization. I mean, because you will depend on this program, and many people, well, let's be honest, many people are quite weak, and they really would like to delegate their responsibility to the smart program. I mean, so they don't like to make any choices, to make any decisions, and of course to take responsibility concerning them. So it's our human nature. I mean, it's not bad, it's not good. It's just it is. So it's just normal. And I was really proud, because when I was a member of big organization which has a DPO board, and we judged one of the great business opportunity to use privacy automation tool with AI inside, just in order to understand if some local staff should be should be promoted regarding their functions in the data privacy organization. And when we were judging this AI program, we have a common understanding that this is great, but this program takes some data privacy manager functionality. And when data privacy manager looks at his or her staff, I mean, he or she delegates the responsibility of promoting her own people to the program. And this is not right, because program is not perfect. I mean, and this is a big ethical, I think, issue for all of us, because yes, the program are good, but from my perspective, when you're using artificial intelligence technologies in any aspect of your business life, of your personal life, it's not really good to delegate all the responsibility and all the decisions to this program. So you have to look at this issue not from the formal legal side of view, but also from the ethical standpoint. And I think this is the most important thing. And I'm really glad that many big organizations, at least, they have their ethic committees that are also involved in assessing if the organization could use any artificial intelligence technologies. And of course, when we're talking about the data privacy, because the data privacy is built up around the data subject rights. And because we're talking about well-being of data subjects. So when we're using AI regarding the data privacy compliance, we should be really careful, and we should, of course, feel that in some perspective, we cannot delegate all the responsibility to such automated tools. So that's the whole story from my side. Thank you.
Thank you, Alexei. Let's run to our last question to Riani. Riani, we are still talking about innovation, and I see everyone is very happy with your previous answer. So let's finish with the question for you. Riani, the question for you is the following. Considering technology, including RegTech and SubTech, are reshaping the compliance landscape, can you please give us some examples of how technology has successfully been used to enhance compliance risk monitoring and controls? How can organizations keep up with the rapid advancements in these areas?
Thank you, Federico. Yes, I mean, the examples of technology, I'm sure many of you are very familiar with them, but, I'm thinking of things like legal libraries, natural language processing that can actually take new pieces of legislation, analyze it, and decide where in the business is it actually applicable. That exists today. Automated risk assessments and decision-making, that is nothing new. In fact, that's some of the specifics that are addressed in the AI Act, in the EU AI Act. Is that automated decision-making. Then, of course, I think probably the best examples of where technology is successfully used is in the anti-money laundering space and the financing of terrorism space. With client due diligence, where clients and transactions are being monitored real time. So that is something that is in place today. And that it can recognize trends, it can recognize patterns, and it can do automated reporting. So, of course, the other one, e-learning for compliance training, that's already also alive and well today. And, of course, it can be enhanced in future with AI by real-time monitoring and understanding from the business areas, where are the weaknesses, what are the training needs, and then bespoke training packages that can be almost automatically put together and be quite specific to a specific individual or a role's weakness. And then Naomi mentioned the ChatGPT, who's using it? Let me rather ask who's not using it. But so I think there's many examples of the technology. The second part of the question is how can organizations keep up with the rapid advancements in this space? I'd like to make a couple of, maybe before I get there, the way I look at AI, and that's quite informative, I think we tend to feel a little bit overwhelmed, there's all of these things happening and they're so potentially dangerous, they're so beneficial in many opportunities. But if you look at the categories of artificial intelligence, the one, let's call it the lowest category, the purely reactive category. This is where it doesn't have any memory data to work with. It specializes in one field of work. So, for example, it can be trained in a chess game, and it can look at and observe the moves and decide what's the next best move. And that's purely a reactive kind of artificial intelligence. Then you have limited memory, what they say, it's collecting previous data and continually adding to the memory. So that's an example of that, is that it can suggest to you a restaurant based on your location data that it sees, right? Then theory of mind, it can start now to understand thoughts and emotions and interact socially. And then, of course, the fourth level of AI is where it becomes self-aware, intelligent, sentient even, and conscious. And this is where it's predicted for 2045, the point of singularity, where robots are as smart as or smarter than humans. And for me, when I look at those categories of AI and the progression of AI, where are we today? And for me, I think we're sitting maybe in the category 1 and 2, purely reactive or limited memory. So there's still some way to go and a lot of development still to come in AI, but we definitely need to understand the risks. We definitely need to be in there. So how do we keep up with these advancements? I think we should start to consider an additional role. It can't be your chief information officer or your chief technology officer, whatever you call that person in your organization. You need an AI researcher with significant standing or sufficient standing in the organization, senior enough so that he or she can be heard, right? we need to always keep the business objectives in mind. So don't just do AI for the sake of doing AI because everybody's doing it. It sounds like a cool thing to do. Create a culture of openness. The culture thing came up a couple of times during today's discussion. A culture of openness and speak up, not just about ethical dilemmas or fraud and that like, but also where are our processes falling short? Where can it be augmented or blown out of the water, so to speak, by introducing the right technology? And then a couple of us also made this point, the adequate resourcing. It's people, people, people. We need to enable our people. We need to look at the roles that they're fulfilling. We need to train them. And if they are in roles that are going to be impacted by the likes of AI, understand how you need to upskill that role, those people. So those are some of the ideas from my side. Thank you, Federico.
Thank you very much, Riani. Luckily, we ran out of time. We received lots of questions from our speakers today. We'll take the questions to you, as luckily we don't have any time remaining. For all of you, please remember we are going to dig deeper in these topics with more than 30 speakers from all over the world in our IFCA Congress 2023. So we really expect to see you all there in October 17 to October 19. And just for attending today's webinar, you'll get access to a special discount that you will receive just after this webinar. Please go to IFCA.co and register today. That was all for today. Thank you all for being there. I hope you had a wonderful time and you take some of the insights gave by our speakers today. Thank you, Riani. Thank you, Naomi. Thank you, Alexi and Pattison. I'd like to close our webinar with a phrase I just read from Dietrich Duvenash. Sorry, Dietrich, if I not pronounce your surname properly. He joined us today, and I saw he wrote this in the chat recently, and maybe it's the best conclusion for what we've been talking today. He said, "It's great to be a compliance officer in this time. The problem is we only have one brain and two hands." I think that's everything for today, guys. Thank you very much. It's been a pleasure to be here. I'm Federico Bolujevic, and I hope to see you all at IFCA's International Congress 2023. Goodbye.
Thank you, Federico. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Thank you.
Federico.
Goodbye.
Great sharing.